when I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Jameson Williams has been so impressive these last couple of weeks. What's going on, draft fans? Welcome back to Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Russell Brown, and I'm your host. And my guy with me today is the dude I flew into Mobile, Alabama with. Been buddies with him for a very long time. Used to work together, the whole nine. And we've done podcasts before, but I don't think he's ever been on the Cover One podcast before. And that's a shame. I'm a bad friend. But he's here, my man Nick Faber. Nicky Fabes, what's up, baby? How we doing?
Oh, man, I am excited to be on the podcast. I'm excited to be in Mobile, and I'm excited to be hanging out with you all week. This is going to be a great show, a great week. I appreciate you having me on, dude.
Yeah, no, it's always fun. As we know, this week is one of our favorite times of the year, without question, and I think it's just there's going to be tons of great coverage. Might be a little bit different than years past, as maybe there's some limitations due to COVID and things like that. But this year is kind of our first year rooming together and really doing the whole thing together. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But we've been sitting up in the hotel watching some film, taking some notes and doing things like that and getting ready for tomorrow's media day, practice, things like that. So we were like, hey, you know what? Let's do like almost like an all-22, but like a roster reveal in a sense. And we kind of did like a fantasy draft, snaked it, took our favorite quarterback, running back, etc. And we're going to have some fun with it. So that's what the purpose of today's show is pretty much going to be about. There's not much to it other than, we'll probably talk about essentially 44 different players here. So there's a lot to dive into, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to kick us off, our quarterback, to start us off here on my roster. So we shaped it up with a quarterback, a running back, two receivers, a tight end, a flex, which could have been an extra running back or receiver, and we kind of both went a little different just to make it fun. 5 offensive linemen, and you just got to find a way to plug them in where you can. And then 2 edge rushers, 2 interior defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, 2 corners, and 2 safeties. So we know that maybe the defense that we're running or the offense that we're running, it doesn't necessarily fit, but we just wanted to fill every single position, traditionally speaking, on an offense and a standard 4-3 defense. So don't get mad and don't get in my mentions or DM me and say you don't know what you're talking about, because I don't care, because we're just having some fun here, drinking some beers in the hotel room, no microphone, just kind of speaking into the computer and having some fun here. So I'll get us started. Quarterback. And I got the first pick. I got to go with the guy that I truly think will be the first quarterback off the board. And despite not doing the hand measurements today, where it blew social media up in the draft world, but that's Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. I really don't care about the hand size. I think realistically speaking, when you watch the tape, it speaks for itself. He can play with 2 gloves on, and he plays just fine. My biggest concern with Kenny Pickett is I don't know what he'll be in 3 or 4 years. Will he be the exact same player that he is today? But I think when you watch him in the pocket, the way he moves in and out of the pocket, it's very comparable to Derek Carr. I think he can make all 3 throws on the field, and that's very important to me as a draft evaluator, but it should be very important to whatever team is going to draft him, whether that's Carolina at 6, Denver at 9, or maybe like a team like New Orleans at 18. So it's going to be very interesting, but I'm going Kenny Pickett. I think it's a safe pick, and I think if you need a guy that's going to play maybe from day one and potentially help you win, I think it could be Kenny Pickett. So, Nick, you're up with your QB.
And before I jump into that, I read this about Kenny Pickett and why he didn't measure his hands. Kenny Pickett doesn't measure his hands in Mobile because he's double jointed, so his thumb naturally points in an odd direction. He's doing extra exercises to get an accurate measurement at the combine in March. So we'll keep our eyes open for Kenny Pickett's hand measurements in March. Double jointed quarterbacks. I don't know if that's a benefit or not, but
I have no idea.
Me neither. So.
I mean, but that's pretty cool.
It is interesting,
and that's pretty cool. And I'm glad that he decided to wait, because these measurements do change. It's very weird. You'll see somebody for example, Tyler Batty from Missouri, the running back. arms are 29 and 7/8, you'll go to the combine, it'll be like 31 and a half, or like 30 and 3/4 or something like that. It'll be very weird. And it's like, how did he gain like an inch? It doesn't make any sense. But it's just one of those things. So you're up with your quarterback and who you want to go with.
And I went with my favorite quarterback in this year's draft. I got a lot of high praise for Kenny Pickett, ever mentioned. I really like Malik Willis, but I went with my guy, Moonball, Mr. Sam Howell. Now I get it. I'm a big Lions fan, and we sat from a side but saw Mitch Trubisky kind of fail in Chicago, I'll say. But you can't scout the helmet, you scout the player. Sam Howell is better than Mitch Trubisky. He's got better mobility, in my opinion, better NFL IQ, reading the receivers. There's a lot to be worked on, and I get that. He will probably fall later in the draft, but just his arm talent, in my opinion, the way he can flick a ball 70 yards without even thinking about it, reminds me so much of just like, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but the arm, it does kind of remind me of Josh Allen coming out when there was a lot of rough around the edges, but you just saw him throw a ball 70 yards with ease, and you said, oh, well, if you can work on the other things, this will give you a quarterback who can get the ball downfield when you need to. And I think that's Sam Howell. He doesn't have the height as Josh Allen. Again, I'm not trying to compare the two, but I like him a lot. Coming out of North Carolina, the kid will be a stud. I hope he goes to the Saints at 18. I think that will be a perfect match for him. But in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes a little bit earlier after this week in Mobile. He's going to look good.
It's a good pick. I mean, I've said that a couple times myself. Like, I think Sam Howell could be potentially the first quarterback off the board just because of what you see. You get some talent around him, and I think it gets a lot better for him as a player. You saw it, 2 years ago when he had Michael Carter and he had Javonte Williams and the playmakers at wide receiver. So that's a good pick. And again, he could have the best week of maybe anybody. I mean, let's be honest. When you're talking about making money in millions of dollars, quarterbacks go early in the draft. So it makes sense to why he could be making himself a lot of money this week.
And this year for the Senior Bowl is unlike any Senior Bowl in the past, in my opinion, where we have 6 of the top 7 quarterback prospects in the draft this year. This was the hardest position to pick, in my opinion, because of all of them. Malik Willis.
Yeah.
All of these guys could be eventual stars in the league. Stars.
Yeah.
And it's so much fun, where in years past, it's kind of like you have a couple of the top prospects, and guys like Kyle Aletta or Mike White or, Luke Falk, like these guys that just kind of round. This year's quarterback class, all of them will be drafted probably inside the top 2 rounds, depending on Bailey Zappi. Like, he's at 1. But he's good enough, it could be a 3rd rounder, a late 2nd rounder, depending on how things fall out.
Hey, if Kyle Aletta can win MVP, so can Bailey Zappi.
That's
so,
exactly
moving to running back, I had the first pick here. I'm sorry, you did. I'm sorry, cool. I can't do a snake draft. You're the fantasy expert. Go ahead, James, or go with your pick.
James Cook, Georgia running back, had been a pass-catching running back pretty much all his career, used on 3rd downs, got more of the opportunity this year. We saw him take advantage of it. Younger brother to Minnesota Vikings, Dalvin Cook, runs like him, and that's the most intriguing thing to me. Just along with his pass-catching ability, I hope the Lions can take a stab at him, because he'd be a great backup for us, along with his pass-catching hands. Perfect for Jared Goff. Mm-hmm. He's just the best running back here. He is undoubtedly, in my opinion, the best running back, and I'm extremely excited to see his on-the-field speed on like 1-on-1 drills and pass-catching abilities, all of that. Like it's kind of hard to gauge running backs in practice because they don't get to hit as much. You don't see them hit, so you have to really pay attention to the fine points of the running backs, where they're looking, what they're doing, how their blocking is, which is undervalued by a lot of people. So you just have to watch like those kinds of things, and I think James Cook's going to come away from Mobile as really earning himself a 2nd-round pick, right up there with like Kenny Walker, Isaiah Spiller is like the top running backs in the class this year.
Yeah, he's done really well. I mean, to end the year, he's had a strong showing this season, but the last couple 4, 5, 6 weeks of the year, he came on strong. So he could, but I'm going to go with a little bit of a safer pick in my opinion, just because I think the natural talent is there, and for a player his size, that's Brian Robinson out of Alabama. He checked in at 6'1", 226 pounds. He's a lot longer than you expect him to be. Maybe that's why sometimes he runs a little upright, but he has no issues dropping his shoulder, bringing his center of gravity down, and he does it so well, which is why he's so surgical when he cuts, and he is just so fun to watch in those short areas of the field. So I think somebody that can create for himself as efficiently and effectively as Brian Robinson does, I think it will definitely help his draft stock. So this week, he's going to get a lot of opportunities in the open field, in one-on-one situations, and just doing the drills that I think he can make himself some money. I think a lot of people view him as like this 4th or 5th round pick, and I strongly disagree. I mean, okay, maybe it's the 3rd round, but you're talking a round different than what you saw, a month ago. So I think he can make himself some money, and like you said with James Cook, I think he could put himself in that conversation as potentially a 2nd round back by the time we get done with this week.
And he's got the size of the NFL running back.
Right.
It's different than college running back. Like in the NFL, it's all in the last 15 years has been going to this big guy running back.
Yeah.
Also, if he gets drafted and then ends up starting, would be the 5th or 6th Alabama starting running back on 32 teams, which is unbelievable. Them and Georgia are running back university. So Brian Robinson's fun to watch.
For sure. I go next here with wide receiver. I don't have his measurements because he didn't measure in today, but that is Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. He was listed at 5'10" on the website for Penn State, so you would probably go with that. Maybe he's 5'9", give or take. But I mean, I hope he's 6 foot, but he wasn't listed on the Senior Bowl reveal of measurements that they've had so far. Maybe they haven't worked on the graphic yet, whatever it might be. But either way, I think Jahan Dotson is potentially the best wide receiver here. And I think just his ability to create separation, his route running ability, I've talked about it time and time again. I love the way he catches the body away from his frame. And I think Dotson has got potential to be a number 1 receiver in the NFL. And maybe not. Maybe, as we mentioned yesterday, we were watching the Bengals. We were down at Haley's Bar down the street here from the hotel. And we were watching the Bengals play the Chiefs. And we mentioned how beneficial it was for Jamar Chase to go to the Bengals and how important it was for that team to get a true number 1 receiver. And it helped a guy like Tyler Boyd not have to play as that X receiver all the time. He can move around. He can play as the 2. He can play in the slot. He can do a bunch of different things. And I think that's important. Dotson might be maybe comparable to like a Tyler Boyd in a sense, where he's going to be probably more effective out of the slot. But when you look at the talent on this roster of wide receivers, I think Dotson can come in from day one and play as a rookie and put up, 60 receptions for 800, 900 yards and 5 or 6 scores. So when I'm looking for immediate impact and production, Jahan Dotson for my roster makes a ton of sense.
Almost like a Golden Tate.
Right. Yeah, right.
You see like a Golden Tate in him. I went a little spicy for my top wide receiver. One of my favorite guys coming off the blue turf, who did measure in at 6 foot. We can say that because we did get his measurements. Also, buck 93, 29 arm, not great. Khalil Shakir, this kid, dude. I'm telling you what, he reminds me of the way Amon-Ra St. Brown got drafted late in the 4th round. Mm-hmm. Now, Amon-Ra got heavily targeted in the latter end of the season and obviously ended up coming up with a lot of good records and stats for the Lions. Shakir can be that. He can be a very, very talented wide receiver in open space. He's a freak. He's got great route running possession, in my opinion. The thing about him is that he's just a little bit on the smaller side, and I think teams are a little weary, so we're going to see him fall in the draft. Could make a big surprise this week in Mobile. But I'm still expecting him to be a later drafted wide receiver who's going to explode on the scene in the NFL and really shake it up. So I'm excited to get Shakir on our team. Team Nick is looking good so far.
I like the pick, I'll be honest. I mean, I watched him over the weekend, not this weekend, but the weekend before, and I mean, just a shifty route runner, does a really good job off the line of scrimmage with some natural releases. I like Shakir quite a bit, and he made some impressive catches this year, one-handed grabs, and made some very acrobatic catches. So I like that as potentially an upside guy that, like you said, Amon-Ra St. Brown could have some really strong production, and he might fall to that 3rd or 4th round range where you might see some more production like that out of those 3rd, 4th round receivers. But you're actually up next with your next receiver as well.
And I went with the hometown kid, Jalen Tolbert, who unfortunately measured in about 2 inches less than every other site. So that's a little nerve-wracking. When every single thing I look up anywhere on the internet is 6'3", and then the measurements here come back at 6'1". It's a little interesting. As Russ alluded to earlier in the show, we will see what those measurements are again.
Yeah.
But I like him. dude, this kid is good. This kid has like natural athleticism. He just is a natural wide receiver. 2-star recruit coming out from Alabama, goes to South Alabama, gets a longer quarterback basically to come in and really help him improve. Finishing the year with 1,400 yards, 1,400 plus yards, 8 touchdowns on a South Alabama team. That it's like, this is not a SEC team by any means. And for that kid to be on that team and already be talking about getting a second-round opportunity, maybe an early third-round opportunity to be drafted, that's exciting for him. And again, the biggest thing is this week for him. Not the Combine, not anything else. Like a lot of other players, the Combine's get a little bit more than the Senior Bowl. This week for him at home needs to impress everyone, including everyone watching. So I like him. I think he will. Taller, good guy.
Look, I'm a big Tolbert guy. I'm glad the Lions get to work with him. We're both Lions guys, everybody knows, but I'm super pumped for him. And Tolbert's a former baseball player too. Probably could have played some college baseball, played center field. He's got like insane tracking ability, which stands out. I just think of a guy out in the outfield chasing down fly balls, and I think he can do it as a pass catcher. So Tolbert's very solid. I'm jealous that you made that pick. So I'm going to go with my next guy, and that's going to be Christian Watson out of North Dakota State. Just a monster for his size when you're talking. You look at like Treylon Burks, man, like 6'4", 225. You got Christian Watson here checked in today, 6'4", 211, with almost 33-inch arms. So I like the length. I like the playmaking ability. They used him all over the place this year for North Dakota State. Normally they run a wide variety of offensive formations and plays, and just their game plan is very good, from I formation stuff to spread offensive stuff. So they do a mix of both, and it really, I think, helps their playmakers, their quarterback, and everything when you look at evaluating talent. So with Christian Watson, you see him at the running back position, in the slot, X receiver, all over the place. I think the upside is really high for him, and when I saw him playing in the backfield, I was like, man, I hope we see that at the Senior Bowl, and maybe a team will fall in love with him just like the 49ers did with Deebo Samuel. Not saying that's who he is, but I think just the playmaking ability can be there, and I think just with that size, you have to pick a guy like that. So I like Christian Watson a lot. I've been a fan of him since he was playing with Trey Lance 2 years ago. Next, we go with the flex, and this is kind of all over the place. I'm going to go with one official pick, but I am going to talk briefly about kind of a substitute pick. So I'll start with my official pick. That's Hassan Haskins out of Michigan. I'm doing this. I'm going with 2 bigger running backs because I think Brian Robinson can actually become an effective pass catcher at the next level. So I can run, whatever I want out of my offense. Like me personally, I'm a split back formation guy, so I'm running Robinson and Haskins, and I'm running it down your throat. But I'll stay with Haskins, 6'1", 220. Former high jump track and field type of guy back in high school. You saw him at Michigan against Ohio State, hurdling guys and doing that type of thing when he was playing up against them. So he's just a natural player with great athleticism, and with that size, really just got that like one-cut ability and is able to go north and south really well. But the biggest thing is he's always falling forward when he's running the football, and I love that. I hate guys that are falling backwards, trying to turn horizontally, going east and west. He's going north and south, and I love that. And I think from a playmaking standpoint, it's huge. And then also, I will just say, because I know neither one of us picked them, but if Haskins is not down here participating in anything, his measurements didn't come out today, so I don't necessarily know what that means. But if he's not participating, I'm taking Calvin Austin out of Memphis. I mean, I just think the playmaking ability is huge for him. It would be super fun to have him in the slot in my offense, and just somebody that can make plays, got that track speed. If you put the ball in his hands, I think good things happen. Checked in at only 5'7", 5'8", so not really the height that you want. But again, you're talking a slot receiver making plays. So that's my flex. You got your flex and your tight end, my friend.
Hey, so I went with the tight end. I went with the wide receiver. Maybe not as projected as high as Calvin Austin or some of the other wide receivers we left on the board, like Romeo Doubs. I went with Trey Turner, Virginia Tech senior wide receiver, leaving the program top 5 in receiving yards, top 5 in receiving touchdowns, all of that with probably the most shakiest quarterback play I've ever seen. Like, just no one there. So Trey Turner, he's 6'1", right? He's a little bit undersized in 179, I think is what they had him in. Yeah, 179. So he's a little bit lighter than I would like. This will be a guy who probably won't be drafted until like the 6th round, 7th round, something of that nature. But he's gonna be good. I promise you. And I know like it's a deep pick, and I'm trying to find a diamond in the rough here, and I think we have him with Trey Turner. Whoever ends up getting him should be very excited. Now, we'll learn a lot more about him with very good quarterback play this week in Mobile. Like, the difference of the quarterback play is going to be crazy for him, going from Virginia Tech to any of these quarterbacks. So I'm excited to see what he does against, top-tier secondaries players and then with top-tier quarterbacks. And if he can do what I think he's going to be able to do and leave Mobile as one of the top 4 receivers that we saw here, then his draft stock will just go up and up and up and up. So I'm excited. I'm taking Trey Turner for my flex. I'm going to run the 3 wide receiver set, and I'm going to try to pass that ball all day long like the 2022 NFL is. We'll jump down to tight end, and I had the first pick.
Don't age me, bro, on my own podcast. I'm going split back, and you're aging me over here. Like,
all right, 1990 guy.
I know. Come on, bro.
He's like, let's run the three back powerhouse formation, all game, every game. Call us Army, or what is it, Army? Right? That does that. Yeah. No, for tight end though, we'll jump ship over there, and I went with Coastal Carolina's Isaiah Likely. Speed. That's really all I'm gonna say about him. Speed. That guy can fly. Watch, if anyone has 5 minutes, go on YouTube and look up Isaiah Likely highlights and just see what he does after he catches the ball.
Right.
Like it's crazy. Now his blocking has to improve because the tight end position is not just running and catching. It is not. It's one of the hardest positions to play in the entire NFL, including quarterbacks. Because the tight end aren't just learning to do one thing.
Right.
They are learning to be a top-tier offensive lineman and a top-tier wide receiver. Yeah, they don't get paid like either of them. It's a different story. Tight ends are also becoming huge in the NFL right now. We are seeing the emergence of tight ends, in my opinion. It's no longer just 1, 2. Teams are going after very good tight ends to help bolster their team. Likely will be that. He will be a second-round pick, at least a day 2 pick, and he will help whomever ends up getting him, hopefully a team that can insert him right away. And in the next 2 years, we're going to see 800-900 plus yards, 5-6 touchdowns consistently from him. So I like him as my top tight end here.
I'm not mad at it. I mean, I think he's a very good vertical threat, like you said, speedster, somebody that you get the ball in his hands, get him in the open field, whatever it might be. I think he can make a lot of plays. But I'm glad that you left my guy on the board for me. That's Trey Mcbride out of Colorado State. As anybody knows, I'm all in on this kid, and I think he can go as high as the first round. I really do. He's 6'3", 249. I just think when you look at his film and his overall body of work, like when you try to find a pro comparison, the guy that always pops up in my mind, and it's rich for some people, but the guy that comes in my head is Travis Kelsey out of Kansas City. I think he is the guy that if it all works out for him at the next level, he can play at that level. And I think a lot of it's because of not what he does, deep down the field or in the red zone. It's really what he does underneath. He runs stick routes really well, and he does a lot of stuff just underneath from the crossing patterns, and he gets out in the open field and what he's able to do after the catch. And it's just so very comparable that I think if you get him, not necessarily in a Kansas City offense, because, I mean, let's be honest, there's only one Kansas City offense. Even though they lost to the Bengals, there's only one Kansas City offense. So I think if you can get McBride in a really good spot, and I think there's some teams in the back end of the first round that could use a tight end, I think that they would be really smart and beneficial to draft him. But even in the early second round, you look at Jacksonville, they need a true tight end, a true playmaker for their offense, and somebody to maybe help the guys on the outside. McBride with Trevor Lawrence would be a home run. So I like McBride quite a bit, and I think he's going to have a great week. But going to offensive tackle, I get the first pick with left tackle, and I'm going to go with the guy that I think also can potentially go in the first round. And oh boy, oh baby, Did he check in today as far as measurables go? Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa, former basketball player. It shows within his footwork, his body of work it shows athleticism. He kind of reminds me of like a Dylan Ray Dunes from last year's draft out of North Dakota State. Also kind of reminds me of Garrett Bowles in a sense when you look at like his frame and potentially what he could be. And again, there's potential for Penning to be a top 20 pick like Garrett Bowles was when he was coming out of Utah. So Penning 6'6", 330. Almost 35-inch arms, a wingspan of almost 84 inches. It's 83 and 5/8 and 10 and a quarter as far as his hands. So he's got huge hands. He's got great length. He's got just great overall size, and he moves well for a player of his size on his feet. So I love Penning quite a bit. I like the way he finishes players and throws them into the dirt and what he can do in the run game. I like what he does from a vertical set when it comes into pass protection. So Trevor Penning, left tackle. If I get my first pick here, that's who I'm going with.
And he's just a stud. Anyone out of Iowa, if you're you're playing offensive line, you come out of anywhere that says
Southern,
the word Iowa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can be East Iowa
right.
for all I care.
Like, East Iowa Community College.
Northeast Community College, Iowa. I like him. Yeah, he's a good pick. I went back to our home state.
Oh, boy.
Fire up chips, baby.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. This guy gained 60 pounds. Added 60 pounds in the last 2 years. He was a tight end for the first 2 years at Central Michigan and has only been playing offensive tackle for 2 years at Central Michigan because he moved from tight end to offensive tackle. I'll name another player that went from tight end at Central Michigan to somewhere. He ended up playing defensive end at Wisconsin. His name's J.J. Watt. So, I mean, I'm just saying the tight ends from Central already have this, it's
this
pretty
aura
good.
about
Exact. Thank you. So, Bernard Raymond. Getting mocked, and Bucky Brooks, Daniel Jeremiah's, both of their first-round picks. I think that might be a little bit of a stretch. And I would be ecstatic and super excited for him. I think he'd be better off in the second round. Measurables came in good today, 6'6", 304, but his arm's length at 33 is in the 12th percentile, which is not good. And teams are ultimately not even going to give him the time of day because of this, which is sad, but it is what it is. With that, I don't even care. I really don't. Bernhard, I keep saying Bernard. I think I'm just going to change his name so it's easier for me to say. Bernhard Raymond is a stud. Like, this kid, again, has played offensive tackle for 2 years and is already on the map so much that he's being mocked in multiple first-round draft picks. Out of Central Michigan, we already have seen Central Michigan offensive linemen be productive in the league, as Eric Fisher ended up moving up to the first overall pick a while back. I don't know how many years ago that was, but we love that. And as a kid whose dad lives 20 minutes from Mount Pleasant, where Central Michigan plays football, I love the Chippewas, and I love to see him. I love to see Luke out here. I hope they both are very successful in the practice. But I like Raymond. He's my offensive tackle, number one pick offensive lineman. And I went back, because I got to snake this, and I went with the interior offensive lineman, Darien Kendrick. Holy moly, is this kid good. Oh my gosh. I cannot wait. This kid he plays the position where it's probably going to be hard for him to get drafted in the first round. But whoever gets him will have a stud who just is aggressive, knows what he's doing, patient, and can rip someone apart. I like Kennard a lot, and I think he's a good number 2 offensive lineman for my team.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't have his measurables in front of me, but I'm pretty positive Kennard had like 11-inch hands, which is ridiculous. And I compare Kennard to Cody Ford when he was coming out of Oklahoma. So he plays right tackle, but I could definitely see him playing right guard, just mauling guys. So I think that's a great pick, and for you to go back to back, I think that's phenomenal.
11.5.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that is massive. That's like the size of my pillow.
That dude is like squishing a basketball,
right?
Like a ping pong.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like that's crazy.
So that's a great pick. I'm going back to back here, and I'm very fortunate. I get Marquis Hayes. I'm a big fan of him. I think he can immediately play at either guard spot at the NFL level. Checked in at 6'4", 318 today. 35.5-inch arms. Not as big of hands as Kennard. His hands were only 8 6/8, so not great from that perspective. But man, he's got tremendous grip strength. You see it on tape all the time. He gets on the chest plate, and he's not letting you go. I mean, he is so strong, and it shows. So I think when I can get a starting guard after you make 2 great picks, I'm going to take that all day. And like I said, I get to go back to back here, and with that, I'm gonna take one of my favorite players, and I think somebody that truly can go in the first round. When you think back to the Chicago Bears, they took out of Iowa James Daniels. I think it's very comparable here. Zion Johnson's got some of that similar upside out of Boston College. 6'2", 314, almost 34-inch arms. I really like his skill set, and I think he's got tons of versatility. I can draft him here. I'm going to play him at center. I think we're going to see him play a little bit of center this week. Again, though, I think in a pinch he could play right tackle if I needed him to. And I think he's going to have a really strong week, and I think it could be strong enough and maybe comparable enough to people that have been following us for quite some time on Cover One. When you look back at some former offensive linemen at the Senior Bowl, Isaiah Wynn, when he was coming out of Georgia, he wasn't necessarily the longest player or the strongest player, but he was somebody that was just so consistent as a player, as an offensive lineman. So I think Zion Johnson could have a really strong week and put himself in that first round category of interior offensive lineman.
Yeah, He's unbelievable. And I would not be shocked at all to see him go in the first round. Like, he's that good.
Right.
He is that good. Same thing with Kaiir. Like, those guys, it's kind of like the position they play. Like, it's unfortunate, but teams don't go after interior offensive line too often in the first round.
Right.
So, unfortunately, just because of that position, we might see him fall. But they'll be studs wherever they go.
But, we did a mock draft earlier just for a little bit of fun, and you tweeted that out. And, you had Kenyon Green go to the Raiders. Well, if Kenyon Green's off the board already, where the Raiders are at I think, 22, I mean, could they look at Zion Johnson? Strong Bills following here at Cover One. We talk about interior offensive linemen. It feels like every day in the chat. Well, if that's the case, I mean, Zion Johnson. That would be a great pick. And I mean, up in the Northeast, Boston College, they've got to be connected somewhere at the university. So I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe, I don't know. But you're up with your back-to-back picks here as far as who you got.
Who? And I butcher this guy's name every time. We're going to try not to do that right now. Went interior. It's like this guy I would never want to take to a China shop. Lacetus Smith?
Yes, sir.
Hey.
My boy.
He's a bull.
Yeah.
And you can't bring him to China shops because he will break everything. This guy will break opposing defenders' faces. He is literally he's probably the meanest person. He's probably and probably a great person.
Oh, he's awesome.
Great dude.
He's a great dude.
Great dude.
He's great.
Meanest on the field player, maybe here in Mobile.
Yeah.
It is going to show. I cannot wait to hear him on one-on-one drills. The pop you're going to hear from him is going to be so loud you will need headphones. Sound silencing.
Looking like I work at the airport?
Looking like you work at the... Exactly. All because Lacetus is out here just popping people. Fucking like zits, dude, So I'm excited for him. I like him a lot. He's my guy.
Yeah.
We kind of threw some guys in. I don't know. On my team, we'll put him at center. I don't know how many center opportunities he's ever had in his life, but gosh darn, if you're going to be on my team, you're going to learn how to play every position. We might even have at running back a couple times.
Yeah.
So, I know, I like him. He was my top guy. He's my center. And then I went back-to-back going with Minnesota's Daniel, and I'm another guy, butcher, Falele?
Don't ask me, dude. I butchered it on a show once, and somebody DM'd me and said, "You did it wrong, idiot." And I was like, okay.
Well, I'll be looking for my DMs after this comes out. I'm going to go with Daniel Falele, which does not sound like it's right. But if it is, that's awesome. And if it isn't, I'm sorry. This guy's crazy. 6'8".
Not human. It's not human.
6'8", 387. Hands are 11 inches. Wingspan of 86 and 2/8. The dude is literally... He's bigger than my house.
Right.
You know what I mean? I live in a house smaller than Daniel Falele.
He's bigger than my double wide trailer, that's for sure.
It's manufactured? That's an inside joke. For all us mortgage people out there, they'll get that one. Yeah, he's there's a great song, right? And I'll reference it. He's a brick house. So that's all I really got to say about him. The dude's a brick house. I can't wait. I love to have him on my team.
Oh, man. I think I have his scouting report actually up on my screen, and I should probably put that in there. He's a brick house. Oh, man. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I get to go back-to-back here. So I'm going with Cade Mays out of Tennessee. And he plays right tackle for them. I think he can easily shift over to guard. Checked in today at 6'4", 321, 34 and a quarter as far as his arm length goes, almost 10-inch hands. So I think he's just really massive, but also he's really strong, and it shows on tape as well. When you talk about a guy that can reset, anchor, reset his hands all the time, showing the grip strength, I think he does a really good job. I think his hand placement can get a little sporadic. I think his footwork can definitely get a little bit faster, but just generally speaking, I think he's really impressive on tape, and I think he could have a really strong week. Somebody that kind of got that late invite to the Senior Bowl and is probably a little bit under the radar when you talk about these interior offensive linemen, but I think he can really have a strong week. And then lastly, I'm going with one of my favorite players, and I might butcher his last name. I call him Luke Godeke out of Central Michigan. I think this kid can play right tackle at the next level. I think maybe he doesn't necessarily start from day one, but I think there's just so much consistency within his game. It's hard for me to look beyond that. And I know you like Raymond a lot. I know a lot of people that like Raymond a lot, but when I compare the two, I think the guy it's ready-made. I mean, I think it's Luke. I really do. A 6'4", 318, 33 and an eighth inch arms, 9 5/8 hands, and I just think it shows. I mean, he's always just so consistent with his hands, putting them in his holster, shooting his hands, hitting the chest plate, grabbing on, and being able to do a variety of things in that box. I think he kicks edge rushers and linebackers out consistently. I think he chips and climbs really well. His tape against Missouri, and I said this earlier, when you talk about like consistent tape of prospects, especially down here, I think that was one of the most consistent tapes I've seen of an offensive tackle here at the Senior Bowl for this class. So I think Luke Godeke can play at right tackle right away. And I'll turn it over to you to close out the offense as you go to right tackle.
And I'm going to bore everyone with a little bit of stats for my right tackle, who is Jamari Salyer from Georgia. Real quick, lowest pressure percentage allowed by SEC tackles. Number one, Jamari Salyer, 1.4% of the time he allowed a pressure. Second, Darien Kendrick, also on my team. Jamari Salyer this year went up against Aiden Hutchinson, David Ojabo, Kingsley Enagbar, Miles Murphy, Will Anderson. And how many sacks do you think he allowed? Give me a guess.
0.
1.
Okay.
0 would have been better. But 1's still really good. So 1 sack. Now, and the biggest thing was like going into Michigan versus Georgia. Aiden Hutchinson rocked Ohio State before and was at the point the national darling. Everyone loved Aiden Hutchinson. Like, they couldn't get enough of him until Jamari Salyer had his way with them. Put him on. Aiden Hutchinson was literally, I'm not sure if he got off the bus for that, lead up the semifinal game. Like, he was nowhere to be seen. And that's all because Jamari Salyer just knocked his ass down every single play. This is crazy. This kid is so good. I can't believe he was one of the last offensive tackles taken in this. He's going to come in as my right tackle. Could even move to guard. Like, he can play guard. We'll move Fele over to tackle. He's big. I just had his measurables and I lost them, but just a big boy. Oh, they're right here. I'll quickly, 6'2", 320. It's just a beast mode. I'll take him as a 10th offensive lineman. And it's crazy. That shows you how good the offensive linemen are here in Mobile right now. Yeah. If Salyer was the 10th one selected. That's crazy.
The conversation of just going through this, it was like, man, I don't even know if I can pick just 5. I'm like, can I just pick 10? Can I just run all offensive linemen out there and run QB sneak all day long?
Well, with your powerhouse formation, that would probably be the smartest thing. Who needs receivers?
Going back to 1912, screw 1990. I'm not going to give a recap. If you want to write this stuff down, go for it. Play it back. I don't care. I'm not going recap.
No,
we're pretty knee deep into this. Going to the defense though, you're actually starting us off because as we snake this, you got the last offensive pick, then you're getting the first defense defensive pick, so you're on the clock.
So with you having the first quarterback, I took the first defense pick, and a guy who I think we're going to go with edge rushers, and a guy that I think is sneaky. Very, very sneaky. Underrated from San Diego State University, Cam Thomas. Just the edge rusher. This guy is, in my opinion, what I've watched from him, he has all of the tools to be a 10-year starter in the NFL at the edge position. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. I love him, and I think the school that he goes to kind of makes him slip a little bit. And we might see him early second, maybe mid-second. I think I just mocked him to the Packers late first round. That's how high I am on him, and I might be maybe on an island about that. But I love Cameron Thomas, and he is going to be the staple edge rusher to my defense.
I'm not mad at you for taking him. I personally wouldn't have done it. That's just me. I'm respectfully disagreeing here. I like Cam Thomas. My biggest issue with him is a lot of his sack production and some of those numbers that are up there as far as statistical, however you want to look at statistically. He did a lot of stuff as far as quarterbacks rolling out, a lot of coverage sacks, quarterbacks just creating pressure for no reason and rolling right or left, and Cam Thomas was there to make the play. I like that. I like that he's able to, be in position to make those plays, but I do want to see the pass rush plan a little bit more developed, and kind of like similar to Jermaine Johnson in a sense. You come to the table prepared and ready to go, and I think at times Cam Thomas does do that, but I need to see it consistently all the time. But you're right. I think there is a 10-year career for him, and I think he can really come in and have success. So I do like the pick, and if he did go to the Packers, I agreed earlier on the mock draft, that would be a great fit for him, especially at the back end of the first round with a team so unpredictable when it comes to the draft. But I'm up next. I'm going Arnold Abachetti from Penn State. This is my guy. Checked in at 6'2", 250, but 34-inch arms, 82 1/8 as far as wingspan. I compared him to Matt Judon, and I believe these numbers are pretty dang close to Judon's when he was coming out from Grand Valley State. I'd have to go and double check it. Maybe I'll tweet it, so find me on Twitter at RussNFLDraft. Little plug. But Abachetti, great lower body, flexibility that really allows him to get underneath the pad level of offensive linemen, and he's got a really good pass rush plan. Beyond that, he's able to show a variety of pass rush moves that I really like. I think he could get a little bit faster off the snap, and if he does, I think it's really not, oh, this guy's good. I think it's more so, watch out, this guy's going to be an absolute stud. So I think for my first edge rusher, I'm going to go Arnold Abachetti. I think he could be a first rounder by the end of this week. I really do. Next, I'm going, do I go interior defensive line here, or do I go back to the edge rusher position?
Let's just close out the edge.
Okay, so I'm going to go with the guy that I've been very high on for quite some time. He's out of Cincinnati, and that's Myjai Sanders out of Cincinnati. Just somebody that He's tremendous length. You got to have guys that have that arm length to create separation. You don't want them to be chest to chest and having that chest plate revealed to offensive linemen to where he's getting steered and controlled and taken out of the play. And I think Sanders with his length, 33 and a quarter arms and 6'4" frame, I think is good. It's manageable. It's what you want at the next level. Only 242 pounds, which is somewhat concerning, and maybe somebody might compare that to let's just say a Brian Burns or something like that when he was coming out of Florida State. So not necessarily the weight that you want. So if he adds 5 to 10 pounds, does that affect his playing style? We'll see. But I think just from what you see as the length, the athleticism, and really the tools that are there, I think people look at the tools of like Jermaine Johnson and say, wow, it's really solid. I think Sanders has, comparable tools. I think he can do a variety of things. So I think Sanders, if he can bulk up just a little bit and it doesn't slow him down, I think he can be really effective. He didn't have the sack numbers this past year, but he generated tons of pressures. So I think Sanders can have a big week this week, and if I can take him, I'm taking him.
I love the Bearcats out here. That's fun to see them repping. I went with Tyreke Smith, Ohio State University edge rusher. Just comes in at 6'3", 245, right, with arms 33 5/8, wingspan 81, hands 10 and 3/8. Mm-hmm. I love all those measurables. I love what I see on film. This kid is electric. Let me tell you a little stat. Highest pressure percentage against Power 5 offensive linemen. Number 1, Nick Bonito, underrated guy, 26%. Number 2, Tyreke Smith, 22%. The kid, as a Michigan State fan, I saw up close and personal. This guy is the real deal. He is going to be a significant edge rusher, probably second, third round grade. We'll see if he can improve his stock this week with his teammate Haskell Garrett on at the Senior Bowl with him. I'm excited. I'm more excited about the potential for Tyreke Smith. I think he looks really good. He might not immediately shock come out as a first overall or first round pick, but comes from a very good program who produces very good defenders.
Larry Johnson, D-line coach.
And we're going to see him show that everything he's learned in the next level, in the league. So I'm excited to grab him as my second edge rusher and kind of get the outside of my defensive line solidified with Tyreke Smith, Cameron Thomas. And then I'll run it back to running out. We're running a 4-3 defense, so we got two interiors. My first one, Travis Jones, Yukon. Holy moly, this guy is good. I like him. Yukon hasn't had much to hang their hat on in the last couple of years.
Oh, no, not at all.
Unfortunately.
Not women's basketball, that's about it.
Woo! Travis Jones is something to hang your hat on. Yukon fans, Husky fans. This kid was legitimate at Yukon, will be legitimate in the NFL. He is fast for an interior defensive lineman. Can play the 3T, can play the 1T. He can swipe his hands like with the best of them. He's got feet work with the best of them. He's just like if you need someone on your team to stop the run, go get Minnesota Vikings. Go get Travis Jones. Like, it will be a phenomenal fit for you. You will be able to have him sitting right there. Any team that needs a run stopper, look at Travis Jones, probably second or third round, and you will get yourself the perfect run stopper. Just great.
I'm really excited to see him in one-on-ones. I really am.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see how we met. Like we mentioned the offensive line, how well and how we wanted to take 10 offensive linemen and a quarterback. I mean, I think him against some of these offensive linemen, it's really going to be the make or break for him. So I'm excited for him. Perrion Winfrey, Oklahoma, measured in tremendously today, and I think he can have a really strong week. So I'm going to start there as interior defensive lineman. And I think at 6'3", 303, he had 35.5-inch arms. I mean, just great separation, and that helps. I mean, he's got a really good motor, I think, and somebody that not necessarily overshadowed in this defense, but there were some talented dudes around him. Nick Bonito, Isaiah Thomas, Brian Essimo, the linebacker. There's a ton of talent on the Oklahoma Sooners defense, but Perrion Winfrey has been really consistent, and I think when I can get an opportunity to potentially put him as a one tech or a 2-eye, potentially as a 4-eye or a 3, and stand up Abachetti on the outside of him, I'm super excited to potentially do that because I think he can penetrate, and I think with his length, he's potentially gonna have that pass rush ability from the start. So I'm really excited to be able to land Winfrey here, and then I'm gonna follow it up with Devontae Wyatt out of Georgia. I think when you get away from Jordan Davis in that top tier, it's a little bit open as far as who the next tier is of interior defensive lineman. And I think Wyatt falls in there. Checked in at 6'2", 307 today. I think he's just got great lower body flexibility. I think he works horizontally really well, shows great change of direction, really quick in between the guards and tackles and just on the line of scrimmage. So I think Wyatt with better usage of hands and getting a little bit faster and just his processing, I think he can continue to get better and evolve. So I really like Wyatt, and I'm excited for him down here. As we mentioned, Travis Jones, somebody that can make himself some money. I think Wyatt can as well in these one-on-one drills. So Devontae Wyatt and Winfrey are my two interior defensive linemen.
And Wyatt probably could have been projected higher if it wasn't for the slew of Georgia defenders. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like he's a great pick. I'm gonna go with another guy that was in that national championship game, but on the other team, Fedarian Mathis. Yeah. Fedarian Mathis, excuse me. Measured in 6'3", 313. Okay. This kid is he's like Akeem Hicks from Chicago. This is, like, when you think of Darren Matthews, he's a little bit lighter, but that's what you should be thinking of. That is how his play style is. Mm-hmm. Another run stopper. He can get to the quarterback. He can force fumbles. But he's great at run stopping. Him and Travis Jones, if they played together and right up the middle with each other, that would be ruthless. And I think Darion Matthews right now also kind of maybe overlooked because Alabama had a ton of defensive stars, and Mathis is, again, you're playing that interior defensive lineman that doesn't always get you the most looked at, I guess I would say. So I won't be surprised to see him drop to the second round. Probably not too much farther than that. But whoever gets him will get an interior defensive lineman that is going to seriously set your team up where your secondary is going to only improve because the run game is not going to be as elite because for Darion Matthews is stopping him.
Right.
Thus, you have to pass. You won't be able to get as much time with Mathis on that line. He's just a wrecking ball. I'm so excited to see him in the NFL. Young, too. And so we'll see what he goes up. He's my guy to fill out my defensive line. And then we'll go to a linebacker, right?
Yeah, we're going to linebacker. Before we get into that, I just want to say, talking to some scouts today about Mathis, they really gave him some praise, said he was a really good interview, could make himself tons of money today. So I'm excited for him, and I hope, media day tomorrow or Wednesday or whatever it is, I'm excited to potentially get an opportunity to talk with him. But yeah, kick us off at linebacker.
Well, I went with the best linebacker here. It was pretty easy. Probably the best linebacker in the draft. I mean, you can argue that Nakobe Dean is.
It's Nakobe Dean.
I'm going with Devin Lloyd, straight out of, oh my gosh, Utah?
Yeah,
Thank
Utah.
you. I was about to say Houston. I was like, that's not right. This kid is just electric. Like, electric. He is going to be a phenomenal linebacker for whomever decides to get him. Will probably be a top 15 pick. Mm-hmm. There's a chance he falls, but there's no way he falls out of the first round. Probably no way he falls out of the top 25 at least. He's just everywhere. That's what he's just so good.
I was hoping I was going to get back-to-back linebacker picks somehow, and I was hoping I was going to land Devin Lloyd, but that's okay. I'm pumped for you that you got him. I'm a little jealous, but I think I'm happy with the two guys I get back-to-back here. I'm going to start Chad Mumma from Wyoming, 6'2", 241, checked in really well today, and just somebody that I think when you look at coverage ability, what he can do in the box and stopping the run, I think he shows pretty good range. And I just think in that box as a 3-down linebacker, he can be effective. He might not necessarily be the sexy Devin Lloyd pick, but when you get into day two, I think he can be I don't want to say a steal because I think his range is pretty well noted, but I think he can be very productive from the jump in his career. So I'm excited to see him tomorrow at practice because I think when you got to cover those running backs out of the backfield, cover those tight ends, that's where you make your money. And if he can showcase that and show that 3-down ability, that's going to be huge for Chad Mumma, again at 6'2", 241. Next is one of my favorite players here, and that's Channing Tindall, 6'1", 223. This guy's got speed, was a little bit limited as far as snaps and even some of his production overall, but I think when you saw him on the field, he did, and this doesn't make sense, but he did produce, and he was involved, and he was somebody that was disruptive, and that's what you want with your linebacker. So I like his range. I know height and weight, not necessarily great, but I think he can blitz, and I think he can drop into coverage. So Channing Tindall is somebody that if I'm looking for maybe that will or somebody that can do a little bit more than just play as my Mike or play just traditionally in the middle of my defense, I think Tindall will do that at the next level. So I had to go out and get this guy because I know, one, you like these Georgia linebackers quite a bit, and if you got an opportunity to take Tindall, I'm going to say screw you, I'm taking him. So Tindall and Mumma for me, and then you're up next with both linebackers.
And I love Tindall. And if you guys go to my Twitter at Honolulu Blues _, little shameless plug, you'll see my top 10 players that I'm excited to watch this week, and he is most definitely on the list. Great pick. I went with my favorite linebacker here, and Devin Lloyd's like the best, but my favorite linebacker, who is probably a day 3 pick, Darion Beavers. Dude.
This is your boy. You've been talking him up all day.
I love him
all
so
day.
much. I love him
He's
so
massive,
much.
though.
He plays downhill.
Yeah.
That's his thing. He plays downhill, and it is fun to watch. He aggressive is a big word that sticks out to me when I think of Beavers. Just super aggressive.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see him. He's got freak athletic skill set. He just plays hard every play, runs wherever, goes wherever, it does whatever he's told to do. And there's a reason why Cincinnati made it to the freaking playoffs. Cincinnati made it to the playoffs, and I would think Beavers was a huge part of that. Their offense was great, but their defense with Myjai Sanders, Darion Beavers, Kobe Bryant, all these guys are at the Senior Bowl. That was huge, and he was basically the leader, in my opinion. He was the like mental leader of that defense, and I'm extremely excited to see him this week. I hope he lives up to all the hype I've been giving him today.
Oh, for sure, and I'll agree. I mean, he was overlooked in that defense because of the talent around him. You add in Sauce Gardner, who's not here, obviously, but Beavers, he's talented, and as we mentioned, with Mumma and stuff like that, you got to see a guy covering tight ends and running backs. I think Beavers can potentially make himself some dough by doing so. So you got your last pick at linebacker, and then we pretty much close it out with LBs with me, and then we jump into our secondary.
So with this, I went with Oklahoma's Brian Essimo, as we already mentioned earlier in the show about him. I went with like a fast. I wanted the linebacker that was going to be able to cover everything. Like this is my speedster right here. I love Brian Essimo. I think him in a 6'1". I can't tell right now, but anyways, he, a little bit like undersized, I guess, but he's electric as well. The third linebacker, all these linebackers are going to have a chance to really improve their stock, and I think Essimo has got one of the lower end stocks of all the guys here, and I think even if he improves it by a round or two, that's huge for him, for his money, for his future, for his career, for his family, and I think that he can do that this week. This pick is more of a potential pick for me. This is a guy who I think might not be one of the best linebackers at the Senior Bowl this week, but in 5 years, when we look back at the Senior Bowl class, he'll be one that's still in the league.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to put it too, and I think you're right. But I'm going to go with another guy that might not be necessarily the best guy here, but in 5 years could very well be that. And while it's maybe not necessarily new to him to being a linebacker, it's certainly something as far as being that starting linebacker and being somebody that is producing at such a high level, and that's a former quarterback, former running back, and that's Troy Anderson out of Montana State, 6'3", 242, and I just love his skill set. I love that he was a dual sport athlete. I love that he played multiple positions, and he's just somebody that shows it every single time in the box. He has really good range, just really good athleticism, and I think it's going to really show tomorrow in practice, the following day, all throughout the week, and I think Anderson's going to make himself some money as somebody that comes in and is really consistent. So I have to take him when I see him there, and especially when you take three other linebackers that I really like, I got to go out and take another one that just...
I'm surprised you didn't pick yourself.
I thought about it.
I thought about it. For anyone who doesn't know, star linebacker.
I don't think so. Oh. Next, we go into defensive backs. Mario Goodrich is where I'm starting because I know you love Mario Goodrich, and look, this dude is physical. He's effective in the run game. I think because of that, he puts himself in position all the time to be around the football. I love his ball skills. 6 foot flat today, 186. Not necessarily all the length in the world, that you want. You don't get like some of this 34-inch arms like you get from offensive linemen and defensive linemen, but it's going to be effective with 30.5-inch arms. And I think with the ball skills there, he's somebody that I got overlooked because of Andrew Booth Jr. and some of the playmakers on that Clemson defense. But Mario Goodrich down the stretch of the season made play after play after play. And I think this week in practice he's going to do the same thing. And I think he's going to I know we talk about Kaiir Elam, potentially Roger McCreary out of Auburn, some of these guys going in the first round. And I think Mario Goodrich has really got a strong chance of making a lot of money for himself, making a name for himself tomorrow in practice. So that's my start on corner. You get to go back to back here, you lucky dog.
I'll take both of these corners. I'll take the aforementioned Roger McCreary from Auburn, who led all Power 5 cornerbacks and actually has the highest rating from PFF for all Power 5 cornerbacks since 2019. That's 3 years. Roger McCreary has the highest PFF grade. You can't trust everything to PFF, but I do like the way they bring their stats out. So I might be one of a few, but I like PFF a lot. We've seen McCreary get burnt. I'm not gonna beat around that bush. He's got room to grow. Should fall into the late first round. Could easily be right there with Mario in like the earlier second, mid-second. There's a lot of good cornerbacks coming out in this year's draft. There really are, in my opinion. And for him to be maybe a top, 5 cornerback, I think it's awesome that he landed on my team.
Of course.
Another fun little stat for him: most pass breakups when playing press coverage since 2019. 1, Cincinnati's Kobe Bryant with 23. 2, Auburn's Roger McCreary with 20. We like those kind of stats. Mm-hmm. He might look like the NFL is also training like different. Like he's all around good. Like this guy can check all the boxes. He got great closing speed, right? He's great ball skills. Trayvon Diggs led the league in interceptions. Mm-hmm. Ask anyone right now, one of the best cornerbacks in the league right now.
Gives up the most yards too, but
got burnt a lot.
Right.
Gave up the most yards, but that's because the NFL is going to a bend, don't break type of defense where they focus more on, especially Dan Quinn, and we saw this with Seattle back in the day. Focus more on takeaways. Mm-hmm. Yards suck. That's a bummer. Touchdowns suck. We don't want to give them up. It happens, especially in today's NFL. They're scoring 30 points a game. Don't worry about that. Bend, but try not to break, and get that takeaway when you need to. That's what Roger McCreary can do, in my opinion.
Matt Patricia had that same mindset. Didn't work, though.
No.
Anyways, I don't want to get you fired up. This isn't Honolulu Blues. Go on to your next pick.
Don't let me talk about Patricia. Got to go Georgia. I don't know how many Georgia guys I got on my team, but I got a lot.
Your team name is the Georgia Bulldogs.
The Georgia Fabers. Darien Kendrick, great cornerback. I don't have a lot of stats for him like I did McCreary. Just from film watching, what I see is this is an elite cornerback who, again, is on. Now, the thing is, I feel like a lot of question marks is, how is he going to do on a defense that isn't one of the best defenses college football has ever seen? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? How is he going to do if he goes to the Jets? How would he do if he fell on a team that didn't have that great of a defense and needed a cornerback to step up? Well, we'll see. Now, he went to Georgia. He wins the championship. Great player. There are questions about him that hopefully we get answered this week. That's what I'm hoping. Again, this is kind of like Essimo. This is like a potential pick. I think the kid could be extremely exciting, but we're going to see a little bit more this week. We'll see how this could age well or this could age like milk. We'll see.
Ooh, age like milk. You don't want that.
We don't want that. Now, I'm hoping that Kendrick isn't going to turn out to milk, and hopefully he turns out to be a nice fine wine, a solid Pinot Noir, aged for a while. But we'll see. This is a good week. He is my second cornerback, though. I feel confident with him.
Yeah, I know you like him quite a bit, and I'm happy with your corners, but I'm glad you left me my two favorites.
Pretty pissed that I left you this guy.
And I'm glad I get him. Taylor Britt from Nebraska, as I mentioned, talked about Mathis earlier with some scouts, talked about this one as well. He got probably the most praise from some of the scouts I spoke with this morning, and that's Taylor Britt. It just seems universal that everybody's in on this kid. 5'10", 200, 31 and 6'8" inch arms, really long, and it shows on tape. And I like him a lot. I mean, I really do. And I think one of those guys that, career high in tackles, it shows because he's always getting physical, always throwing his shoulders and arms into plays. But meanwhile, he's really patient and his ball skills are there. He had 11 pass deflections this year, and I think it's because not only is he effective in man coverage, not only is he versatile because he's playing as a single high safety, playing in the slot, playing on the outside, he's also understanding of his zone coverage responsibilities and his man coverage responsibilities. He understands where he needs to be in his drops. So with that patience, he's trusting his athletic ability, and that's putting himself in position to make these types of plays. So I think Taylor Britt is going to make himself a ton of money this weekend. I really do. And I think when you're matching up with receivers like Tolbert and Kaiir and other guys, I think he's going to put them on an island and lock them up pretty well.
I love Taylor Britt. I'm super upset I didn't draft him over Darien Kendrick, but it is what it is. There's mistakes in drafts. It happens. Ask the Lions.
Yeah.
This is what I wrote on my top 10 players I wanted to watch this week. Taylor Britt, a projected fourth-round cornerback, could be ideal for the Lions secondary. Taylor Britt hits like an ox, provides exceptional coverage, making his biggest splashes in zone coverages, and great at tackling runs like the Energizer Bunny. And I don't want to compare him to this kid.
But you're going to.
But I'm going to. And that's because I'm a Lions fan and I pay way more attention to the Lions than anybody else. And this is not a great... he tackles. Just tackle. He tackles like Jeff Okudah. And Jeff Okudah is one of the best tacklers, tackling cornerbacks coming out of the draft. Now, obviously, the Lions haven't been able to see him really. When he did play, he's laid some good hits. He's just physical. He's really, really, really physical. And that's what Taylor Britt is. And that's exciting. Like, I was looking up some tweets. He never minds lining up in the box.
Nah.
You know what I mean?
He's about it.
He's about it. That's what he wants. He just doesn't have the size. He's like, all right, I guess I'll play quarterback, but let me hit someone, you know? So I love that.
Yeah, I'm a fan of him. If he can stay healthy, I think he can, again, I think he can have a big week. I think he can have a big career, and it's going to really work out for him. So next, safety. I get to start us off here. I'm going Kirby Joseph out of Illinois. And I did that on purpose because I left you your favorite safety on purpose because I feel like you left me Taylor Britt on purpose. So I'm going to leave you Jalen Petrie because I know that's your guy. But Kirby Joseph, Illinois, great measurables today. 33-inch arms, 6 foot, 200 pounds. You talk about ball skills. You talk about a guy that can make a play on the football, Dan Quinn style of defense. I think this is that guy. And I mean, 7 pass deflections this year, but 5 interceptions. I think range is there. He can play as a single high safety. He can play in those cover 2 looks. He can do a variety of things. So Kirby Joseph could really have a big week. And while I think there's, obviously, Kyle Hamilton is the top safety. You could maybe potentially throw in, Jaquan Brisker and some of those guys in the early, in that early, maybe late first round, early second round. But you look at like Brandon Joseph, who came back and now is transferred to Notre Dame. He was potentially a 3rd or 4th round pick. I think Kirby Joseph's got the ability to potentially go that high. So I think he could again have a good week. I like him, but he's one of my favorite players down here from a secondary standpoint.
I love Kirby Joseph, but you did leave me my favorite, and I did appreciate that. Just rounding out the Georgia Favors, but it's not a
Georgia Favors. I love it.
So I'm with Baylor's safety, Jalen Petrie is how I've been saying it.
Yeah.
I got a question for you. Jalen Petrie, his entire career at Baylor, how many touchdowns did he allow in coverage?
1. 0. Okay.
0 touchdowns allowed by Jalen Petrie. This kid is versatile. He can play linebacker.
Yeah, he can do it all.
He can play safety.
Stand up edge.
He can play quarterback if he needs to, probably. Probably better than Jared Goff.
Oh, God.
He's great. Like, 2nd, 3rd, probably 3rd, maybe 4th round. We'll see where he ends up going. I just love... He's the guy who can do everything for you. He'll play special teams for you. He'll do it all, and he's awesome. He will be a locker room leader.
Yeah.
That's what I think of him when I see Jalen Petrie. So I appreciate you leaving him. He was my first safety. I'll round out our entire draft, or my entire draft, for a safety, linebacker/safety. I'm putting him back in the safety position. I don't care what anyone else wants to say. JoJo Doman from Nebraska. I think that's how you say his last name. This kid is crazy good. Like, it's crazy in my opinion. So I'm super excited, that I get to have this fun safety of Petrie and Doman, who both are versatile safeties. Both can play anywhere. I'm rushing 2 safeties every play, bro. Yeah. Blitzing them both, and I'm saying, let's go. You know what I mean? Let me see what you can do. I had a really fun stat about him being the top rated. I can't find it. Damn it. It was the PFF's top Big Ten secondary. He was number 1 or number 2.
For the linebacker position or just?
For all position.
Oh, okay.
So out of all I think, and I can't quote me on this because I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe what I had read was out of all Big Ten defenders, he had the highest or maybe second highest PFF grade in coverage, which is amazing. Which if you want to put him at linebacker, don't worry about him trying to cover a running back because he's got it. You know what I mean? Don't worry about him trying to cover Isaiah Likely because he's got it. You know what I mean? So I like him. I'm going to kind of go crazy, and I'm putting him at safety with him.
Nothing wrong with it. And obviously, guys, we know we have to have a 53-man roster, but we're only going our top 22 picks, so it is what it is. I like it, but I'm going to stay down the old beaten path of traditional ways of doing things. Yeah,
football.
Exactly.
Yes, no, I get it.
I'm going to go with another safety, and I'm going to go Yusuf Corker out of Kentucky. I really like him, and I like Petrie a lot, and I think you're right. Like, he could really separate himself and everything else. But I think Corker could do himself some damage this week as well, because 5'11", 204, physical. I really like what he can do in either dual safety or single high safety looks. Only played in a game this year, so that's why I'm liking it the most for him to be here, because I think he can really put in some work and make a difference for himself. Only playing in one game this year really sucks. But a year ago, 77 tackles, 2 interceptions. A year before that, 74 tackles. So I'm loving it, and I really think Corker can do himself some work, because it's important for him to have a strong week. And you're taking selfies again, so I think that means it's time to wrap this thing up. But no, that's it. I mean, that's all I got on Corker. I'm excited to see what he can do.
He's got a last name Corker. Come on, baby, go be a corkscrew, baby.
And don't get me wrong, I wanted to go Kobe Bryant, but traditionally speaking, been playing corner for so long, I didn't want to be that guy that goes, well, anybody can go from corner to safety, just like anybody says, oh, he can play offensive tackle to guard. I know our offensive lineman that we took, we kind of said that for a lot of guys because we don't really have a choice.
Right.
But at the same time, like, we're just having some fun, and it is what it is. So, Nicky Fabes, my man, I appreciate you coming on, joining me here, doing this kind of all 22, but from a roster perspective. So it was really cool, and it was a Senior Bowl edition. So it's getting us ready for tomorrow, the rest of the week down here in Mobile, Alabama. Where can people follow you on Twitter? Because I know you got 2 accounts, and they're not burner accounts, they're business accounts. So where can we find you on Twitter?
Well, first and foremost, just appreciate you having me on. I'm always excited to do anything with you. Like you said earlier in the very beginning of the show, we've been friends for 7-8 years now. It's awesome. I don't even think I would be where I am right now without you, because when I first met you, you were just breaking into the writing scene, and I said, well, I know more sports than him, so I should probably be doing this too. So I figured I jumped in, and that was why we had such a good connection, is because our sports, we could just talk for hours and hours, and like literally this show could continue to go. Like we don't have to wrap it up, but I guarantee everyone listening is ready for us to wrap it up. Please, if you like me, if you like listening to me, find me at Nick Faber NFL. I will be having a ton of Senior Bowl videos and content and all that out there. I do a lot of fantasy and Detroit Lions. If you are a Lions fan, go to at Honolulu Blues _, because we all know the feeling of them Honolulu Blues, and we sing them every year, because the Lions never do anything for us. But again, I appreciate you having us on, Russ, or having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, anytime, man. It's always fun. You guys do great work over there on Honolulu Blues, and the podcast is great chemistry. So you guys find that, subscribe to it, find him on Twitter, and obviously smash that follow button. And for me, you can do the same at Russ NFL Draft. And like our podcast, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, really wherever you stream your podcast, you can find it. Just search Cover One NFL Draft Podcast. So we'll be doing a lot more stuff probably throughout the week here on the podcast, and also on article stuff. So check it out over at cover1.net. Nick, my brother, I appreciate it. So yeah, that's it. That's the all 22 portion of our rosters here at the Senior Bowl. So until next time, this is Cover One, the NFL Draft Podcast.